It's time for a reality check.
We're here to deconstruct health and fitness trends and provide tangible advice so you can become 1% better with each choice starting today. Welcome back to Reality Check. We are your hosts, Jess and Jill, and we want to talk about today what hormone dysfunction, hormone imbalance, any of those terms that you might see on social media actually mean, and when does it actually matter to draw your labs? I think that this is something that I probably rant about very frequently on social media, but I think it's so important because I think we've really seen the functional health landscape evolve very quickly. All good things that people are really starting to open their eyes to a more genuinely functional, health-focused approach. However, we're still getting always caught in these little rabbit holes. And I feel like functional health now, one of my biggest beefs with the functional health space is that people are paying a lot of money out of pocket to get labs drawn and looked at through a functional lens, but then they're often given expensive supplement protocols that go on and on and on forever. But what actually caused anything to be imbalanced in your body in the first place is the way that you're living your life, the food that you're eating, the movement that you're doing or not doing, the stress management or lack thereof, right? Like your actual day-to-day inputs ultimately are what eventually got you to that place with your health, with your body, with your everything.
And we are not against the supplements or the protocols.
But they are supplemental.
They need to be paired. Exactly. They need to be paired with the change of whatever the actual cause was.
And they can't override your unhealthy inputs. That is often what we see happening. And then people are like, well, I paid all this money to this functional doctor and I never got better. And I'm like, these doctors are not discussing nutrition. They're not discussing the behavioral components in life. There's so much that goes into it that's being overlooked. And now I feel like we're just operating in a different little siloed corner of health. And that's not productive for individuals.
And that goes for our clients too, where we are looking at their day-to-day behaviors. But just because you did your labs and we recommended supplements along with it, if you don't change the things, then you're frustrated that nothing's changing. And it's like, well, it's like the David Beckham meme that everybody shares, like, be honest, come on, what are you really doing? Well, I am going to sleep at 2 a.m. and I'm binge watching Netflix for 3 hours. And it's like, okay, those lifestyle things actually have to change too, along with it, or we can't expect that your gut's healing or that your cortisol is coming back into regular ranges or whatever the case may be.
Yeah. So we often with clients, we've kind of evolved the way that we approach the utilization of labs within the program, because sure, I could charge everyone money up front, $1,000, run all these labs and tests up front. We know that you're not where you want to be health-wise. We know that that's not going to look the way that we want to look. No matter what those labs say, the first steps that we're going to take with you are 100% of the time always going to be the same. We first need to audit and understand your life and what a couple of weeks looks like with your life that you say is crazy and running your kids to sports and what happens when you skip breakfast because you're late for work. We need to look at all of those habits and see what are the biggest rocks to move. Are you managing your stress? Are you sleeping? Are you hydrating? Are you getting enough nutrients in your body? Calories specifically, right? A lot of women unintentionally undereat. And that's one of the biggest driving factors of their dysfunction in the first place. So no matter what, if I get a lab panel for you and it says A, B, and C are off and out of range, I still need you to eat more than 1,200 calories a day. So you've now just essentially wasted $200 on a blood panel when we could have done that later and said, okay, now that we've made these foundational changes, we've done all these, we've checked these boxes that we have to check no matter what. Now let's run the lab panel and see what else do we need to optimize. But treating labs as your first line of defense is a giant waste of money.
Unless you want it as a baseline. Right. While you're then going to make a change, right? If you want it as a baseline, there's nothing wrong with that. But yeah, to use it no, I just need answers. It's like going to the doctor and begging for a diagnosis just to be given a medication. And it's like, okay, but could you actually heal yourself from the thing?
It is just
is that something you're interested in?
Yeah, you have to do something with the information. And that's I tell clients all the time, I'm an information data girl. I like to get it all up front, get my baseline, see the picture. I want to see how it improves. If that's the case, that's lovely. But for you to think that the lab and the information is going to, like, a lot of times we want to justify the suffering that we've experienced over time, right? Like, it's like, I want to know. I feel like I've gone to conventional and they said, you're fine, you're fine, you're fine. I just want to know. And I get that.
But at the end of the day, you still need to build muscle and sleep
Right.
and add fruits and vegetables. And like, okay, now you know that your numbers are off. Okay, cool. You still have to do these basics to get them back to healthy.
Absolutely. The dysfunction rarely starts with what's actually on the lab panel. It starts with your
The lab panel is because
habits.
of the other things having
Exactly.
been chronically off.
So it's
So
cool to get that snapshot, but what are we doing about it?
So we kind of went over some of this, but like a lot of the common physiological mechanisms that cause dysfunction, undereating, or I would just say undernourishing, because a lot of people undereat a few days a week and then they overeat on super processed, unhealthy stuff, and they're not getting enough protein, fiber, vitamins, minerals, right? So like eat more whole foods and eat more nutrients and eat more protein. Chronic sympathetic activation. So your sympathetic nervous system is your go, 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 fight or flight, keep us safe nervous system. Like, I'm stressed out and I just need to run from the lion, right? We are in that state more than we know because we're always staring at screens, and there's more drama because we have access to the whole world's news. And like, even if you're not physically feeling stressed, if there's stimuluses like that coming into your brain, it's a stressor on top of all normal life stuff. So, and on top of us being addicted as a society to coffee and like stimulants, like those types of things are all sympathetic nervous system activation. Disrupted circadian rhythms, that kind of goes hand in hand with the last one. But again, if we're staring at screens late at night, it interrupts our melatonin production. It will change our cortisol patterns. Like, we are supposed to see sunlight in our eyes in the morning, and it's supposed to be dark around bedtime when the sun goes down. And we absolutely screw up that system. And then that impacts our sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. It keeps us in that fight or flight state instead of being able to recover at the way we ought to. It leads to heightened cortisol at times that it shouldn't be heightened. It leads to us waking up in the middle of the night and thinking, oh no, I have a hormone sleep problem. And it's really like, if we can get our routine underway, then our hormones will start producing at the right times like they're supposed to. And then compromised digestion or like detox symptoms, so gut or liver function issues, can cause a lot of these trickle down things related to hormones and functional symptoms and skin symptoms and cognitive symptoms like brain fog or anxiety or depression. Now it's a trickle down, right? So you don't just wake up and have liver congestion overnight. It's because of this trickle in of stressors and toxic stuff that we give our body over and over and over. And eventually there's a tipping point where our body stops flushing things out the way it ought to, right? So me and Jill both used to always be like, oh, well, the liver does your job. You don't need detoxes. Well, in the traditional sense that I've heard like MLM companies use, yeah, you don't need those detoxes. You don't need to do a juice cleanse.
Right.
However, look it up. There are physically two phases, phase 1 and phase 2 liver detox, where our body packages up stuff, right? Like our gallbladder and liver spit out bile, packages up this toxic stuff. And then phase 2 detox, the toxic stuff needs to be prepared to exit the body and bind to something so that we can poop it out, so that it doesn't then recirculate and cause detox symptoms like headaches and brain fog and yucky stuff. So you can actually support that with milk thistle and magnesium, and there's a bunch of different cruciferous vegetables. Yeah, NAC, which is a precursor to glutathione. Glutathione helps with the detox process. So all of these things are physical things. Well, a lot of times we do a liver flush protocol with clients, and mind you, we're conscientious of all these factors while we're doing it. So we're not doing it at low calories because we're not trying to add another stressor. We are not doing it actually paired with exercise. We program strength training for every client during this 2-week or 3-week flush type protocol. We have people doing like yin yoga, really slow, recovery, parasympathetic type movement, because we're trying to basically reduce stressors while we're allowing the body to flush stuff out. So we're doing this in a very strategic way, but oftentimes after, we actually see thyroid numbers go into more normal ranges, cholesterol go into more normal ranges, sex hormones go into more normal ranges because our excess estrogen stores up there, right? So when we clean out the liver first, it allows everything else to be disposed of the way it ought to. And again, the liver is usually the start of that trickle down, then the gut. If our gut has some contaminant or pathogen, it doesn't mean you're doing something terribly wrong, right? Like I picked up a food poisoning at Chipotle a few months ago. Okay, it sucks. It is what it is. Yeah. And here, what are we going to do about it? I need to now fix my gut a little bit. Well, if my liver's already backed up and then I'm trying to kill this pathogen in my gut, okay, now I'm adding more toxic burden to the liver, right? So again, it's a trickle down thing, and we want to approach the whole system, and it's not an overnight fix. I just had this conversation with a client who has just undergone a liver flush. She has some thyroid symptoms. She has a lot of energy and fatigue issues. And when we looked at her labs, something just doesn't seem right? Well, we're waiting on her GI map. We haven't seen her gut microbiome breakdown yet. We haven't looked at the results yet. Meanwhile, I have her doing this liver flush, and she's like, okay, so after the liver flush, like, am I going to respond better to my fat loss phase? And I'm like, that's not the intention here, right? So like, we're trying to clean up your system, but we need to get to the bottom of what's going on. We're going to wait and see what comes back on your gut test before we say what's next. In the meantime, I don't recommend going into a diet because we're adding another stressor on your gut if we do that. But I've had some people where, okay, it's a one-time thing like me. Great. You have E. coli. We need to kill the E. coli and repopulate the good stuff. There's been other cases where a client had like mold blowing into her area at her desk at work. So we would go through these protocols. Her symptoms would get better, and then the symptoms would come back until eventually she realized it was continuous mold exposure, right? So not change. I know, but I'm saying like not changing the physical environment cause the symptoms to come back. So it doesn't mean you're not doing something to support your internal system, but you also
following a protocol is irrelevant if you are not changing the thing driving the dysfunction.
Not changing the thing, right? And it was great because we were able to get to the bottom of her feeling better in this environment. And she ended up removing a lot of inflammatory triggers because her symptoms then went down. But at the end of the day, every single person is so different. And it's kind of like we're solving a puzzle and trying to put all the pieces together.
And also we did an episode a couple back about allostatic load. So like with this client, let's say you live somewhere and you can't remove yourself, or you're getting the mold remediated, but like it takes time, right? Her doing that, her pulling out other things that were contributing to inflammation, other stressors on her body, does help with symptom relief because it
gave her a break.
The overall load of stressors on her body. However, to Jess's point, everyone's like, oh, cool, fat loss, right? Like liver's good, opened it up, detox. And it's like, yes, metabolically, that is going to have benefits and it is going to be helpful for you later. But like, we have to fix this stuff first.
And we don't want to put you right back in the stressed position that your body was in before, right? Like we actually want to live in this, we call it like the safe place, but your body needs safety signals to say like, oh, sweet, we're not just in survival mode. We actually have extra resources to let go of some of this stored energy as body fat.
And again, too, with hormones, like you have to look at patterns. Like so often I'll have a client say, my HDL is high. Can you look at this? What should I do? Should I stop eating red meat? Should I stop doing this? And it's like, hold on a second. We've got to look at the whole picture and see why, which is why I refuse to ever do one-off lab reviews because I don't know you well enough as a person to support you effectively. And I think that's an absolute waste of your money and a disservice to you and ethically does not feel good for me. Which is why I only do it for clients because I need to see how you live and what your habits are and what drove that dysfunction. Because you saying like your labs say high cortisol, cool, I can give you a recommendation for something that can help with that. But if you are, so like Jess said earlier in the episode, up 3 hours a night watching Netflix with blue light in your face and you're exhausted every morning and you drink alcohol every Friday and Saturday night and stay out till 2 a.m. Like there's so many things like this cortisol supplement is absolutely irrelevant in that equation. And
if we're not doing
your money and my time, right? Like it's not the best way to serve you. And I think that's important to understand. So many people, especially in the landscape of GLP-1 in present times, it's faster and faster. We want quicker results, and that's fine. We're not against GLP-1. Listen to other episodes for that. But the point is that we are so often looking for some secret thing that allows us to continue living the lifestyle that we want to live, the lazy one with the bad choices that don't serve our health. And we want to take this thing that says, okay, I don't have to change this behavior. This can help me override it. And it does not work that way. You are going to spend your life tormenting yourself, honestly, trying to look for a shortcut when there isn't a shortcut. You just have to nourish your body, sleep, manage your stress, hydrate, build and retain muscle. Like those things are never, ever, no matter what solutions are dangled in your face on social media in this industry as it continues to grow. None of that will ever change the fact that this is what your human body needs to thrive in this lifetime. And I think that's really important to understand. We're happy to help with hormone dysfunction, but you have to be willing to change your behaviors and your day-to-day inputs that drove that dysfunction in the first place. And we are not asking you to eat every 3 hours, Mediterranean only, sing Kumbaya every morning and not have drinks and be social in your life. Like
maybe for like a month.
Yeah, but even still, it can be at whatever pace feels good for you. Like I have a client, actually, this is a really great, I'm glad I had this conversation. I'm about to send her this episode when we're done. She has had a really hard time from the beginning of our time together being consistent with going to the gym. She is so insanely all or nothing that I have been like, hey, do 10 minutes of working out one day a week and that's it. And in her head, she's like, well, that's not going to do anything. So why would I do it? And it's like, hold on a second though. If you do that every single day for the next 2 months, and then I can add 5 minutes and then I can add 5 minutes, there is no fucking deadline. No one is rushing you to do anything. So that's going to compound. And her doing that is, if it, let's say it's 0.5%, not even 1% improvement for her health, you are still fucking 0.5% healthier 6 months from now than you were when we started. That is progress and that's okay. And I think we need to relinquish these like deadlines that we have in our head. If you have an event you want to get in shape for, cool. Like, yeah, we're going to hold you to a higher standard much faster. Based on the result you're looking for. But I think it's really important to understand that, like, you want a thyroid supplement, you want a cortisol supplement, you got to change your behaviors. And this is why clients end up working with us for a couple years at a time, because we do meet them where they're at. And we say, hey, you want this result. This is the most effective, efficient way to get there. But if you can't do this, we scale it back for you and for your life, or maybe just for that season of your life. You can ramp it up or dial it back at any point with anything. So I think this is a little bit off topic, not to put pressure on yourself, but it's just important to understand that everyone's, like to Jess's point, everyone's needs are different and everyone's allostatic load is different and diet history is different and labs are going to be different. The solution is not
stress environments are different, right?
Yeah, like, the solution is not high cortisol, insert this, high this, insert this. Like it doesn't work that way. It's not this perfect equation.
And then there's 2 points I want to make, and one is off topic, but I want to loop back around to something I said earlier because I want to clarify as to not confuse people. The other thing is your gut environment, your health environment, your internal allostatic load does change with time, right? So you might go through one of these protocols, you might feel better for 2 years, and then maybe you're exposed to something else, or maybe you're going through a really stressful season of life at work or with your spouse or with your kids, and it creates a new internal environment, and your hormones can start to change again, and or your gut can start to change again, right? I think that's important to know too, because I think people have this presumption that like, once I fix it, it's just better forever. I've talked about this before with myself. Like the first time I ever worked with a functional practitioner was, I was bloating really bad from eating beans. And like, I just stopped eating beans for years because I was like, I guess I have a reaction. I guess I'm sensitive. Once I did testing and I found I had H. pylori, I cleaned it up. My gut was better. I reintroduced things, including beans, and I've been able to eat them now for several years and not had any issues. And it's been really cool. Because I would bloat, like look pregnant, having beans, if I had a beer, which I don't have very often, but like it was a visible, huge bloat. I fixed that. However, my stress environment hasn't really improved, right? So I haven't had the H. pylori problem specifically since I killed it and repopulated my gut with good stuff, but I kind of started having weird gut symptoms again within the last year. I retested again and I found, oh, there's another pathogen type overgrowth that I had. I'm going to go through a different protocol, but similar. I'm going to now kill this stuff off and kind of restore my system. I know if I don't improve my sleep, it is a detriment to my health long term, right? It's like not sleeping well is like when people have cigarettes and they're like, well, today it's not killing me. Well, over the course of time, it's probably taking years off your life, right? The lack of sleep and the stress inputs are a taxer to my gut. So even if I'm doing these other healthy things, I might be improving it some. I'm still probably having some level of gut permeability and issues because of the stress that I put on myself. So I need to work on that. Again, I just say all this to say, like, if you do work with somebody really, really good and you do feel better for a little bit and then something swings in a different direction, it doesn't mean you're broken. It's just probably that the inputs over time have changed again. Maybe you had sushi and there was some sort of contaminant and like, okay, it is what it is. What am I going to do with it? Right. So it can change. And then also I want to revert back to something I said earlier about clients being like, okay, cool, my liver's flushed. Now can I go into a deficit? I want to really separate physique and hormone health or functional health in two different categories while we're talking about this, because I don't want to send the wrong impression that that's
the only motivation.
And or that these types of protocols are necessary for you to see body fat loss. You could choose not to explore any of this stuff and still see body fat loss. Typically, what I have found is that people who truly do have underlying stuff going on may have to cut at a lower amount. So like our clients with PCOS, our clients with other stuff going on who haven't maybe fully addressed the root cause, it's not that they can't lose body fat, but what I've seen is we've got to cut lower and lower and lower until we figure out what that amount is for them to lose. So again, nothing is defying the law of thermodynamics here, right? Eventually, if we get into a caloric deficit, you start losing weight. But I have seen personally that it takes a lower and lower deficit, even when those people have done a really successful, effective build phase and not gained at high calories. So that's all. I wanted to give that caveat that like, just because you think you are weight loss resistant does not mean you need all these protocols. You probably need to do the basics more consistently, quite frankly. Yeah. So these are two separate goals, the health goals to alleviate symptoms. And then on the other side, the deficit and physique change stuff is a separate conversation, we're moving in different directions with both of those goals.
Ironically, these foundations that we discuss do serve as the foundation for general health, for life, for more effective physique change and more effective fat loss phases, right? Which is why we generally start women in this muscle building phase of the program, because it's so multifaceted. And again, I think we talked about this on episode in the last like 2 weeks, but this serves a big purpose. So like labs can be great context, right? It does give you visibility into how your body is adapting to certain variables in your life, right? Because it truly is different for everybody. There could be a person with extremely high stress in their life, and maybe they work 60 hours a week and whatever, and you run labs and their thyroid is fine, right? Like it's not, these things aren't like constantly like synonymous. So it does matter, like big picture, what the overall environment is, and everyone's body and threshold is totally different. But what matters is how you interpret the data and when you interpret the data. And like Jess said, you can go in a deficit right now and drop your calories and be in a deficit and see results and go live your life. But instead, for us and the way that we approach within our program is that we want you to be healthy, and then your physique improvements are generally a byproduct of that. And not generally, they are, but ultimately, yes, we're going to have a season of life and time together where the number one priority is physique. And there are absolutely clients who choose physique. We say, hey, listen, you've got X, Y, and Z. You're bloating every single week. You're saying it's debilitating in your day, but you want to go on this deficit right now. These are kind of competing goals. Like what's more important to you right now to focus on in our
without judgment. because it is
Yeah,
your
no
life.
judgment. We don't care. We just genuinely want to make sure we're giving you the most effective path, not just grasping at straws and hoping for the best.
And we will give you our recommendations to say, hey, health wise, I don't think it's a great idea to go into a deficit. If you say that's the most important thing for you, I'm going to guide you on how to do it in the healthiest way. But I don't think that that's the best idea based on the symptoms you're giving me. Know the consequences to every input, right? So if we go into a deficit, we may be able to see some physique change, and then we can come out of it and go back to a build and or approach these other things. However, going into a deficit is another stressor on your system, on your gut, on whatever these symptoms are that you're complaining about, right? So, and I've had these conversations with people who then say, okay, I want to focus on physique. And then they focus on physique and their symptoms get worse and they freak out. And I'm like, hey, we kind of had this conversation before you made that choice. Like, if you want to shift gears, you're allowed to shift gears. Like, let's reevaluate. But it's almost like they feel like the rug was pulled out from under them. And it's like, hello, we went over all this and I suggested we go up in calories and you didn't want to, right? So like at the end of the day, having somebody who is coaching you, who's very honest about pros and cons of either pathway. It's your journey, it's your life. There's not a right and wrong, as long as you understand the inputs and the expectations are aligned with those inputs.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, the foundations are always the same to make all of these things more effective, to make healing your hormones, fixing your gut, losing fat. The foundations are still the most important. I was just having a conversation with a client yesterday about, she's pretty sedentary. And I was like, hey, we're going to have to make some changes and check some boxes before we go into the fat loss phase based on when we anticipate that. Because if we're having a hard time hitting these foundational inputs now, the deficit later is going to feel really hard for you. So I'm again making sure that I am, one, helping my client be healthier, but also setting the expectation later, like, hey, this deficit is likely going to be more difficult, right? Yeah, it's going to suck. And you're going to be frustrated, and there's different levers we have to pull. And if we're never pulling this one, we're going to have to pull other ones like more intensely, right? Yeah. So anyway, all of that, again, that's off topic, but it's just really about knowing that foundationally these things matter, and labs can be extremely insightful. And with like a gut protocol, for example, we certainly do not ever go into those blind, right? We're not like, yeah, here's some digestive enzymes, you don't need to test right out. Like, I want to be clear that that's not the case. With a gut protocol specifically, we have to see exactly what's going on, because I've had clients come to me, the seed probiotic is like, their ads are like shoved down people's throats, is like, oh my God, this probiotic changed my life. And a client came to us, she was actually had extreme overgrowth of the bacterial strain that was in seed probiotic. And she was just taking seed probiotic for over a year. And I'm like, this is why you don't take random supplements without labs. So that is a case where if gut is your priority, yeah, now we have to actually take a look and see what's going on. So I do want to be clear that foundationally, these things are going to exponentially improve your fatigue, your low energy, or all of these other things in life that you might be experiencing. But there are times where we will recommend, hey, you're saying gut health is your priority right now. We need a more targeted approach to something like that.
A very specific approach. Yeah. And yeah.
And also
sending off stool samples and looking at what is actually going on. What are your inflammatory markers? What are the good gut bacteria? What are the bad gut bacteria?
Yeah. Not to mention that when you come to us or not even come to us, when your goal is gut hormone optimization, whatever the case is, if you are dieting on, dieting off, following keto for 30 days, and then you're not, we don't even know what lever to pull. So that's the other reason that we take clients through a very, I'm putting in air quotes, boring phase in the beginning, because we want very clear, stable data and inputs. Then we can see, okay, what gaps do we need to fill and what actually needs additional support. But if you're, I'm low carb, I'm this, I'm YOLO, nothing's working, so I'm going to take a dieting break. Like we have
you're
no
throwing
idea
spaghetti at the wall and you're seeing what sticks and then saying nothing works for you. And it's like, well, you haven't done anything.
We don't even know what
that we've talked about for 4 months. You've just been saying, yeah, I'm doing it. And I'm doing all this other stuff. And it's like, okay, I don't believe it if I don't have the data, quite frankly.
So those labs are just a snapshot of a random point in your life in between all of the random shit that you're attempting. So those are good foundationally, but also you need stability to know, okay, what's actually wrong here.
It's also really important that whoever is analyzing and interpreting your labs is looking big picture and zooming out. So I've had a lot of clients, so many clients whose doctors are like, oh my gosh, your cholesterol is horrible. And I'm like, okay, what's your HDL? What's your LDL? What's your triglycerides? Let's look at your whole thing, right? Like I had a woman last week. She every year has like an annual health test at her work for insurance purposes. She is down in inches, but she's up 2 pounds. They only look at BMI. Her body composition has improved. She's gained muscle and lost body fat. That's why she's down in inches. However, because her BMI went up and her cholesterol went up, they put her in a different ranking in terms of insurance breaks, right? I went over her labs with her. All of her liver numbers, her kidney markers, everything significantly improved. And this higher cholesterol is clearly a transient high cholesterol while her body is breaking down fat, right? So this is not a indication of, oh, scary heart health issues, this one incidence of it, right? Because we're looking at patterns over time. All of her other blood markers across the board had improved. So I think knowing what you're looking at too, and looking at everything. Again, a lot of doctors only look at TSH for thyroid. And then they're like, oh, it's normal. Okay, well, if you have all these symptoms that maybe seem problematic, let's test your other thyroid markers and look at patterns of how your body's actually converting and utilizing thyroid. Because a lot of times we actually see problems if we look at all of the data, not just at this one number. And I also say that to say if one number's off, that might not be the end of the world if all your other numbers are great, right? So like, then you might not need to worry about it at all. So again, whoever I say this about our programming and about basic nutrition coaching all the time, but like if you're working with a good person, they should be able to explain the why behind their recommendation, not just spit out, oh yeah, do this because I heard it once, or I saw it on TikTok, or they should be able to understand and explain the why.
Yeah, absolutely. So ultimately, I feel like it's so interesting. This is episode like close to 80 episodes into this podcast. And if you haven't caught on yet by listening to multiple episodes, most of the time our episodes loop back, no matter what the topic is, to foundational things that matter the most, truly. We still need to make sure you're getting enough nutrients and calories for your body, that you're managing your stress, that you have good sleep hygiene, that you're strength training, and you have more muscle in your body for long-term health. And then the other stuff is bonus and in addition to that. But again, just to like summarize and be clear, because I know we had a couple of tangents on the episode that I think were important context, is that no matter what, your daily life and inputs and habits and movement or lack thereof and all of those things are what drive hormonal and gut dysfunction in the first place. And I'm not saying it's intentional and you're sabotaging yourself. It's just life, and life gets crazy sometimes, and we get it. But it's important to understand that it's okay to want labs and to want clarity on what's going on and get answers to why you don't feel your best. But ultimately, the labs are not the solution. They are just a snapshot of what's going on. And then you have to actually do something to change and improve that. Which remove things that drove that dysfunction.
Starts with the basics. So some of the worst things you can do are overdo it on intensity and cardio while under eating. Instead of focusing on getting skinny, focus on getting strong and healthy and nourishing your body and getting plenty of sleep. If you do those things, naturally your hormones, your thyroid, all these things are going to improve. And then if you do that consistently for 6 months and there's still issues, please come work with us. And we are happy to run your labs and do a more targeted protocol. But I would say 9 times out of 10, that in itself fixes people's symptoms.
That is all for today's episode, and we will see you guys next time.